By the time you finish reading this, the ocean will have moved 3 inches closer to someone's front door. That is not a metaphor. It is not the future. It is Tuesday, in a village on the southern coast of Bangladesh, where a woman named Rima's mother-in-law once kept a photograph of her wedding day in a tin box under the bed. The water came for the house before it came for the box. When it was over, the photograph was still there, soaked through, the faces on it blurred but recognizable. She didn't cry when she pulled it out of the water. She had done this before. In America, climate change is usually spoken about in the language of degrees and decades, 2 degrees Celsius, by 2050, if the world is lucky. In Bangladesh, nobody measures it that way. They measure it in front doors. In graves. In the exact number of steps it takes to reach higher ground before the water gets there first. Bangladesh is a country built by rivers, and now it is being slowly unbuilt by the sea. It sits at the base of the largest river delta on Earth, a flat, crowded floodplain roughly the size of Iowa, holding a population greater than Russia's. 2/3 of the country sits less than 16 feet above sea level. Scientists estimate that by 2050, rising seas and sinking land could submerge as much as 17% of the country's total land, displacing an estimated 20 million people. More than the entire population of New York State, forced to move, in a country roughly the size of Wisconsin. Abdul is 54 years old. His father farmed the land he was born on. His father's father farmed it too. Now, when the tide comes in, Abdul can't tell you where his field ends and the river begins. He keeps a rusted metal fence post standing alone in shallow water, 20 feet from what is now the shoreline. It used to mark the edge of his yard. Behind it, there used to be a house. His children were born in that house. Now there is nothing behind the post but water, all the way to the horizon. Abdul's story is not unusual here. It is the baseline. In the last decade alone, more than 1 in 7 people in Bangladesh has been displaced by a climate-related disaster. A flood, a cyclone, riverbank erosion, or the slower poison of salt working its way into the water table until rice paddies that fed families for generations turn into cracked white salt flats that grow nothing at all. This might feel distant, sitting in America. It isn't. The same warming ocean that swallows land here is the one pushing hurricanes harder into the Gulf Coast, flooding streets in Miami on days when it isn't even raining, and dragging wildfire smoke over skylines in New York. Bangladesh has contributed less than 0.5% of the world's total carbon emissions. It may be the first nation the world loses to the thing it barely helped cause. Which raises a question this story keeps circling back to: when a crisis is caused by the whole world but paid for by the poorest corner of it, who owes what, and to whom? When land stops being farmable and the sea keeps its promise to return, there is only one place left to go, up-country, into the capital. Dhaka is already one of the most densely populated cities on Earth, and an estimated 2,000 people arrive there every single day, many of them climate refugees who don't yet have a name for what happened to them. Rima and her husband, Shaheen, made that trip after a cyclone took their house for the second time. Shaheen said it plainly: enough. We cannot keep rebuilding a house for the water to take again. They ended up in one of the largest informal settlements in South Asia, a maze of tin roofs and narrow alleys where more than 100,000 people live pressed together, many of them from villages just like Abdul's. Rima found work sewing in one of the thousands of garment factories that have made Bangladesh the second largest clothing exporter in the world, supplying, quite literally, the shirt on someone's back in Ohio or Texas or California. She held up a pair of jeans she was mending once, a tag from a familiar American brand stitched into the waistband, and said she makes clothes for people she will never meet, in countries she will never see, and sometimes wonders if they know where their clothes came from, or what it cost to make them. In 2013, the collapse of the Rana Plaza garment factory complex killed more than 1,100 workers, briefly putting Bangladesh's textile industry, and its invisible thread back to Western closets, on the front page of American newspapers. Safety conditions have improved since then. But the underlying arrangement hasn't changed: cheap clothing for the West, thin margins, and rising climate pressure for the people making it. Every American closet has a thread running back to a place like this, and the workforce making that thread keeps growing every year, not because the industry is booming, but because the coastline keeps shrinking. At night, by a single bare bulb, Shaheen talks quietly about his brother, who went to Malaysia to find work, and about other men in the settlement who talk about going further still, the Gulf states, or trying, somehow, for Europe. It is not, he says, that they want to leave their country. It is that their country is leaving them first. Climate migration rarely looks like the crisis footage people are used to seeing. It looks like this, quiet, slow, a family doing an impossible calculation in a one-room home, one flood at a time. But this is not only a story of loss. Out of sheer necessity, Bangladesh has become one of the most inventive countries on earth when it comes to living with water instead of against it. Along parts of the coast, farmers grow vegetables on floating gardens woven from water hyacinth, tending them from small boats, harvesting food from fields that no longer exist in any solid form. An engineer named Anika Rahman helped design a school built on a platform that rises with the floodwater instead of fighting it. Kids arrive by small boat for 4 months of the year, climb a short set of stairs, and class never stops. Her team has built dozens of amphibious structures now, schools, clinics, even chicken coops, all designed to float rather than flood. People come from Louisiana and from the Netherlands to study what they've built. It is strange, she says, that the poorest country in this story is the one teaching the richest ones how to survive water. The United States has emitted more cumulative carbon than any nation in history. Bangladesh has emitted a sliver of a percent. There is a version of this story where that math actually matters, where the countries responsible for the damage help fund the adaptation happening in places like this. Right now, the money pledged for that kind of climate finance falls far short of what adaptation experts say is needed, which leaves people like Abdul, Rima, and Anika building their own solutions, one floating garden and one stilted schoolhouse at a time, without waiting for permission or funding from anyone else. Abdul still hasn't left. His father is buried about 30 meters from where he now stands most mornings, somewhere under the water now, though he can no longer point to the exact spot. He says he wants to stay close to him for as long as he can. In Dhaka, Rima watches her daughter do homework under that same bare bulb and says she wants her to have a home that doesn't move, though she doesn't yet know where that home will be. She says she's working toward it every day. Anika, overseeing construction on a new amphibious clinic, puts it simply, they are not waiting to be saved. They are building the boat while they're already standing in the water. Every year, the tide in the Bay of Bengal creeps a little further inland. Every year, somewhere in America, a storm hits a little harder than the record it broke the year before. These are not two separate stories. They are the same story, told in two different accents.